Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you to the JournalismAI team for having us here in London, and thank you to Sudhira, who we prepped this fireside chat. I am representing the IQA project. I led the project as a project manager, and IQA was Guarani speaking initiative that that El Surti as a newsroom tried to delve deeper into how AI models understand underrepresented languages and what newsrooms could do in order to better train LLMs to do that. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that, but I would like my fellow Sudhira to present what he did for Gubbi Labs and the particular project in itself.
Great. Thank you so much. First of all, thanks to the JournalismAI team and for being here. Good to be here. So very briefly, I am Sudhira. I lead Gubbi Labs. One of the things that we do at Gubbi Labs is communicate science, and we try to write stories based on published research in India. And we have been doing this from 2014, and we are, if Sanutha says her team is very tiny, we are micro tiny then. We are about 4 or 5 editors with about some 30-40 freelance writers, because each of our writers need to know the different research topics that they have to pick up and write. So that's what we had, and now with the JournalismAI grant and the work that we did, we have been able to kind of use research papers and generate stories much faster, and that's something that we have been doing now.
So I guess in different capacities, we were part of teams that, thanks to the opportunity that we had at the Innovation Challenge, we managed to find some answers about how small newsrooms can compete in the AI arms race, which is the name of the fireside chat. So I'm wondering, like, what's your experience and what's your take about the project that you tackled?
Right. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, because for any small newsroom, right? So you're trying to, at some level, try to optimize and see how best you can improve efficiency in there. So for us, so what used to typically take about 5-6 days to come up with a news story based on a published research paper, because a writer has to go through it and understand what is the storyline and things like that, and then come through it. What it would take, like I said, almost 6-7 days or a week's time, we are now able to cut it down to like 3 to 4 hours. As in, what we are talking about now is sort of efficiency that we are now able to building, but it's not just AI there in the sense, but we have editors who are postgraduates, like graduates in science or engineering, who are sort of work as the human in the loop, who are able to say, like, look at what it is and all of that. That is one end. The other end also is like in India, right? Like if you look up some of the top institutions, like the Indian Institute of Science or some of the Indian Institute of Technology is there, they publish about 2,000 papers annually. And overall from India today, we have about 3,500 new publications every month. So for science editors like me and couple of us, it's a weekly task to sieve through those records to see which one is newsworthy. And that's a very challenging task, because how do you pick which is, if a research paper is just an incremental research, or something esoteric that people are not able to connect, or which is something that needs to be told. So what we have also come up is now with that, is that we have come up with what we call as a newsworthiness index, where we are able to now filter out these 3,500 to like ranking across different topics, let's say climate change, environment, health, engineering, physics, chemical sciences, and bunch of things like that. And then we are now only have to like sieve through about 50, 100 of these categories itself. So that's kind of also bringing in efficiency in that sense.
It's interesting that, you know, the concept of efficiency, how can it change in between teams and newsrooms? For this particular newsroom that I assisted, El Surti, efficiency meant not pushing volumes of publication, and it's not an outlet that publishes a scale. And it was, the concept of efficiency for us was actually finding an excuse on AI to try to serve better and attract a different community that the newsroom felt that it wasn't serving the right way. So the entry point was to give them something that might be useful for them, which in this case would be access to AI tools. Right. So right now, as you probably know, it happens with hundreds of underrepresented languages. LLM models don't understand them, and code switching, it's even worse. So as a newsroom, what we could do was the existential question, and how we could do it on in an efficient way. Right. So we designed this outreach program in which we went straight to the communities for them to train Mozilla Common Voice data sets through a very simple front end in which you record an audio in Guarani and then other person validates it. That's how you train a data set that at Mozilla you can see the percentage of validation of said data set. So an LLM could arguably go to that data set in order to understand the language. So currently, at the beginning of the project, the validation was around 11%. And we managed to take it out to 16%. It wasn't a huge effort because these efforts are like state level sort of efforts. You need a ton of resources, but we are sort of setting the playbook for how we should approach this and offering to the community. So this is a long answer to explain what efficiency looked on our end, but when we were talking about at that Zoom call when we were prepping this, you said something about how defining purpose was essential. So how did that shape the project?
Yeah, I guess for any of us, right, as in a big or small newsroom, I think the core thing before jumping onto the AI thing is that define the purpose, as in, because the purpose will define exactly as to that will guide you what you need to be really picking on. Because 1 lakh feet above, all the tools and things that we can do with AI is all fancy. There are a lot of possibilities. It is like basically jumping into an ocean and then you have so many things there. So I guess what will be very critical for any of us is to kind of define that purpose. And for us, one of the key things was to really look at, can you simplify a published research paper? As in, that's where we started with. So, and then of course now, since the time we started to now, there have been so many developments, different LLMs. Even within those LLMs, there have been new versions and stuff like that. And some of them have also graduated to give you voice prompts, and all of these things have changed. Audio summaries are coming in, visual things are coming in. So a bunch of things are changing, right? But you need to really focus on what is important. I guess defining purpose is the most fundamental thing for any of us to be starting out. And based on that, then it becomes easier for you to actually pick up which are the tools or what you need to really do based on that. That becomes very simpler.
When we define the purpose, and we also, I guess, define the scope of these kinds of projects. So I'm curious about actual goalposts at the beginning and at the end of the program, or of this version of our projects. And again, going back to this idea of how small newsrooms can compete in the AI arms race, El Surti's newsroom is a 13-person newsroom with just one person at the community outreach position. So for us at the start, and you know, Lakshmi and Zena, especially Zena, who was, you know, coming to the check-ins on a monthly basis, knows we set up a goal of achieving 70% of validation, and we realized that we weren't going to go that far when we were at it, and while we were going to the communities and having people, you know, recording themselves and validating, we realized that that was going to take several more hours. So I think that moving goalposts for us was an important thing. Like, what happened over there?
Yeah, I guess we had, of course, although we were distracted a bit in the sense, because like I said, technology is changing so fast that, you know, you always get into distract. But I think sticking to the overall goal for us, it was like simplifying science. So that helped, as in sticking to that, and then having our structured thing that these are the intended outputs that we really need. So we didn't sort of, although like in between you play around and try experimenting with stuff and things like that, I guess defining that baseline as that based on that purpose is crucial for you to achieve something.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're sort of, our projects are sort of communicated because of this thing, like regarding language.
Yes.
And so obviously I have an experience on Guarani, but can you tell me a little bit how you handle that sort of particular problem?
Yeah, so
which is huge.
It's a complex problem there. Like in India, we have like almost 22 languages as an official, and then if I'm just looking at South India, we are like saying like 4 or 5 languages. And although we try generating stories in like 6, 7 Indian languages, what we've seen with using some of these LLMs are that they're still not yet trained, I feel like, well with the kind of words that we are having, particularly to kind of contextualize for the regional sense, right? So let's say often we within our Hindi and Marathi editors we have this discussion and or at times fights in the newsroom, in the sense that, you know, this is not appropriate because at times, even in the Marathi story, when you are trying to use an LLM and generate, it's picking up Hindi words into it, so which is not correct in the sense. So you can't have them. So and that's where even if you're trying to experimenting with that, that's where human in the loop comes in. That's becomes very critical to kind of see what it is. And like speaking of language, right? Like even with my native language, Kannada. So we have different dialects, and that's true for most Indian languages, that you just can't say this is one language and have this. So we'll have to have those variations. And if I have to reach out to like saying the last mile, as into the people in different regions within the state, I need to make sure I'm talking in their dialect. So that's a challenge that is compounded as well. But yeah, I guess with whatever, as in the hope is that sooner or later we should be getting there, because you will need to train all of that and make sure that you are there, like how you are trying to do there.
In our case, it's mostly, I think, building a case for it to you know, get traction, and we sort of got that traction on you know, moving the needle on validation. But for it to happen, it's going to demand probably more resources at a state level, and especially for the subtleties of the usage of the language. So the Guarani speaking community is a 7 million people community based mostly in Paraguay, but also in parts of Bolivia, Brazil, and Argentina. And again, as a number, it looks like a pretty, you know, palatable pool of people to reach out to. But then again, like, we need to give something specific to them and see how it goes. So that was a moment in which, you know, this whole thing of using AI as an excuse for actually building community played out. by going to these communities and telling them, hey, like we are doing this that the state is not doing, that the private corporations are not doing, and this is a tool that you can't actually use because Guarani is an oral language. We are actually asking you to co-create with us, and that's how we got our way in to that community, and that's how I guess the project was already validated for the next stage. So, but in order to be fully functional, it's going to be, it will have to be able to address, for example, code switching, as I was mentioning. So,
yeah, if I may add on to that, I think one of the key aspects for like any of us, I think, is also to kind of get feedback and do any course corrections, because ultimately your end users who are reading out your or consuming your content, it's also we need to keep a track of how well they're using, accepting it and where is it going, and based on that we may have to kind of moderate in that sense. And having said that, I think I'm sure in most small newsrooms like us, many of us wear multiple hats, as in you're not only like bucketing yourself as like I just write, I just edit, I just help with graphics, or I do this and stuff like that. So I guess in a small newsroom that's always there. But one of the challenges also could be like not having sort of a programmer or a coder.
Absolutely.
And that's where I guess there has to be some creative ways of partnering and coming up with solutions and things like that.
On that end, what I would say is in this particular aspect, so I was integrated into this newsroom as a project manager. I'm not part of the newsroom, and alongside with me, we incorporated a conversational designer for a chatbot, which is the next iteration of this project, already live, and a developer, of course. And it was like a sort of AI cell that was briefly integrated for this project, and therefore we could provide the process and also the technical muscle for this newsroom to be able to operate, because it wasn't only about training the data set, it was also about like how to gather first party data of these people to keep them in the loop, and how to get back to them, and how to actually make this chatbot be alive and also being capable of getting trained, which is the second version of Aikwa, which I haven't told you about until now, which is actually El Surti has a dedicated chatbot that you can train, and you can send it WhatsApp messages to it, and he will transcribe it, and you can give it feedback about the translation of, or the transcription, of a Guarani audio. And you can tell it, this was right, this was more or less, or this was wrong. And so the chatbot is going to collect this information and get back to the data set and keep training. So yeah, there's a lot of components that start getting implemented inside. But I guess that getting buy-in from the audience and getting recognition from a tiny pocket and maybe overlooked space of your overall audience might make you a stronger competitor or a stronger player in your media environment.
True. Yeah, I guess that's crucial as well. I guess I'll take one step back again, going back to how small newsrooms can also kind of when they lack resources and all of it is to think of creative ways of engaging. Like from the place where I come, we're like close by, like we have Bangalore, which is like tech city in India, and we could like think of hosting hackathons and data hackathons where you don't necessarily have to hire engineers and sort of programmer to do all of this for you, but you could just host a 2-day or a 3-day hackathon sort of a thing where you pose all your problem and then get something solved by the community. Because if you get the community involved, that will be a much greater buy-in, and also you will have some additional support as well. And then as you cross certain limit and like cross the line somewhere, I guess you can then think of hiring more folks on board, I guess.
Absolutely. And thinking about you mentioned earlier the importance of having a human in the loop.
Correct.
So I would probably ask you, what would be your non-negotiable, human checkpoint, if I may?
Yeah, so for us, I think quality is of the prime thing, as in the content outputs that we are coming out is paramount for us. So, and since we are communicating about science, there cannot be anything that is misstated or misinterpreted. Like, although in the process of simplifying science, I can't misstate anything, and that's paramount. So we've seen that even with some of the LLMs that you do, that's why our human in the loop, the editor has to go through it, because you need to check whether, even if it has picked up the science correctly. As in that's paramount, and that's where I guess quality is paramount, because end of the day, in the long run, right, audience or like your consumers are going to come back to you only if you're having good quality, and the work should speak for yourself, and that's where it stands. So quality is non-negotiable.
Yeah. And for us, I know I just elaborated about the chatbot, but we wouldn't have had the chance to have a chatbot had we not have an actual person, a community articulator, going to these small towns and cities around Paraguay and gathering people to do this sort of tiny hackathon. We call them mingas, which is the word for gatherings and to do stuff. And that was the first interaction was 100% human, and the rest, everything that the chatbot is getting is checked by a person. So I would say maybe templates plus LLM plus human, editing, fact checking, or whatever you're doing might be a doable prompt or a doable setup, for tiny newsrooms, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I know you're doing a workshop next session, but would you recommend any tools that newsrooms should explore? Yeah,
for sure. We are having right after this vibe coding workshop with Ryan over there. So I definitely got into vibe coding for prototyping because it was an easy way to try things that made me curious. For example, creating my own personal website, and suddenly I discovered that there were so many more things that I could prototype with using a vibe coding tool. So I started with DeepSight from Hugging Face, and it was amazing. It has evolved so much in the last time, but the most potent tool at the moment to me is Google AI Studio. You can easily jump from prototype to something that you can actually show your developer, and it's interesting how vibe coding allows you to start with a need or a hunch or a problem that you want to solve. And actually would advise everyone to start with that and not to tell it, I want this to look it this way, to start with the actual thing that you want it to do, and the powers of that tool will expand and even go beyond what you were planning. So yeah, but also I know that Claude also has a very potent vibe coding tool, and we're going to elaborate a bit more on that. But the point is, to your point of trying to figure out ways to incorporate technology, and to Sanuta's point in her workshop about having more fluent conversations with tech teams. If you can produce a prototype, a sort of working prototype, then it paves the way for better dialogue in between editorial and tech teams. And this is something that is you actually can prompt it. So I would 100% advise to get your hands dirty on that.
Yes, great. Yeah, I guess I'll just second that in the sense. For those of you not really some of us also have not really come into coding and then picked up things like that, but I guess something like Google AI Studio or things like that you could start with and then start experimenting, and then when you really are there, and hire a sort of programmer to take things forward and scale it up and things like that. Yeah.
I would love to bring the room in if someone has any questions for us. Like if not, we can keep elaborating on our experience. And I mean, I can start like with throwing something out of nowhere if there's no question. So for example, if we were, let's say that we were a 2-person newsroom, like starting something, like what would probably be the first thing that we would like to automate, or that would make sense for us to automate? Like, what you think?
What's the first thing that you would want to automate, right?
I would, yeah, the want.
Yeah.
I would start definitely at an operational sort of level, like trying to, let's say if we are a breaking news outlet, like the first thing that I would like to get is, everything that I could, put out on breaking, run through my editorial guidelines. And that's something that you won't be able to prototype, but you will be able to at least, populate a notebook LM of sorts, or, something that you vibe code on AI Studio with an editorial style guide and run the breaking news through there. And eventually, if we get money or something, or some resources to run it by a developer, maybe we could plug it in with APIs and start having, content of our own to make ourselves noticeable. It shouldn't be about content at the beginning, but if we are starting from scratch and don't have anything, that would be our way to get our way into an audience of sorts.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I would also like kind of continue in that sense, look at the process of minimal workflow that you have. Like once you have the content and getting into publishing, right? So some of us would be using some certain content management systems. So how do you sort of automate once you have frozen your content to kind of take it to your CMS and then have other collaterals like the graphic or social media posts that are all generated and then that can be pushed or something like that.
Yeah.
So although like also kind of, because there are additional tasks that within the editorial team somebody has to do it, and
absolutely,
things like that you could kind of optimize with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to what we were saying about, like, I want to go back to something that I had in my notes about using these particular tools as inclusion tools, not just like a shiny new thing and a nice to have. I think that's priority for small newsrooms, because you only have some room to operate. So yeah, I think that for us, and probably for your newsroom as well, to make it inclusive, made purpose to keep it going and keep it developing.
True.
Yeah.
I guess again, I'll go back to, like, in the sense saying what's the key purpose, as in based on that you'll have to work backwards and keep it there.
Absolutely. Tom has a question for us.
Thanks both so much. It's super inspiring to hear about, and in general, I think throughout today, all the amazing work that's happening kind of at small newsrooms. I'm just kind of thinking about, like, and leaning into this sort of question of competition. You've kind of flagged that the technology is changing so quickly, and it feels, to me at least, like it's changing quicker and quicker. Is that kind of an advantage to small newsrooms, or do you see it kind of increasing a disparity and I guess helping bigger players compete more effectively? Or how do you see that kind of dynamic as the technology is improving?
Want to give it a go first?
I don't know. Should I?
Yeah.
So I guess I would say it's both good and bad. I mean, like, in the sense, it's nice that technology is progressing and all of it, but the bad is because for small newsrooms, like if you're like stuck to some, let's say, version 1 and then you have version 2 already out there, so when somebody has to catch up and sort of make sure you are updating it to it and things like that, and not often you have all the new resources to kind of do that, or you will still stick to version 1 until you will see that you can do that. But that's where like I said, I guess if we have sort of creatively think of having hackathons, and if you have a community already there who would come and sort of contribute voluntarily to do certain things, or you could have some goodies or prizes for somebody solving some of these, and you could sort of solve that creatively, as in that's how I would see that.
Yeah, I would complement that with having worked with several small newsrooms in my career. I think that at this point there are specific needs that small newsrooms are not quite able to fulfill for themselves. One being like first-party data. I think that technology is quite not there yet in order for a small newsroom to easily incorporate it. It's great that technology is allowing these newsrooms to try different sets of tools, but in the sustainability game, I think that we still, like these newsrooms still, this is not enough, and this is not something that I am, basically claiming from tech developers, but I wouldn't be as far. I wouldn't go as far to say that the playfield has been leveled. It certainly allowed more room for imagination, but as Sudhira is saying, if you don't have some degree of like development muscle, it's still going to be tough. So yeah, I still think that and again, it's not a competition, as you were saying, because small newsrooms try to cater maybe to niche audiences, so they don't necessarily need to keep playing the same game, which is the purpose of, maybe having a small newsroom. So I guess the answer would be yes and no. Thank you. Yeah.
More question.
I hope I'm loud enough. My question is, I'm Zenzele from Zimbabwe. I'm coming from a small newsroom. And we've been talking about AI and the newsrooms and the small newsrooms. And we are struggling with monetizing AI. Mm-hmm. We are spending so much money subscribing, buying tools, but we are not getting the money back.
Yeah.
Maybe from your experiences, where is the money when it comes to AI and the newsroom? Because for us, the problem is the dollar side.
Yeah. I have a specific answer to that, and the answer will be inconclusive. This particular project that El Surti tackled in Paraguay, as I was saying, was aimed to get closer to a 7 million people audience that we thought was underserved. Like the financial or the monetization goal for that would be, beyond grants, obviously, but in order to develop that, would be to convert them into subscribers. So your question gives me the prompt to say that the other thing that this chatbot that El Surti has allows you to do is to subscribe to its print magazine and also to sign up to attend to its events. So is it going to be sustainable in the long term? I don't know. But this has been an effort to use, AI technologies and an AI project as an excuse to bring people closer. If you ask me about things like agentic engine optimization and all the new, trends on potential AI monetization, I think that the answer, it's still, inconclusive, and I think that probably a marketplace of sorts will get developed. I don't know how big of a player small newsrooms will be in said marketplace, to be honest.
I
think we have to wrap up now because we have the next session.
Well, we can keep it going after. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sebastián.
Thank you.